I walked into my kitchen after returning from my morning walk and saw my cherished dishes, the ones my late husband Gerald bought me on our 30th anniversary, tossed carelessly into the garbage bin. My daughter-in-law Amber stood by the counter, arms crossed, smiling smugly. "They were old and filthy," Amber said. "I bought new ones. You should thank me." I felt my blood run cold. These dishes represented 40 years of memories. I looked at Amber calmly and said, "Perfect. You'll use them in your new home. Because you're not staying here anymore." The kitchen I had maintained for 42 years in my 3-bedroom ranch house in suburban Ohio suddenly felt foreign to me. The morning sun streamed through the window above the sink. The same window where I had watched my son Brandon grow up, where I had washed dishes after countless family dinners, where Gerald and I had shared our morning coffee for decades. But now, standing there at 67 years old, I felt like an intruder in my own space. Those dishes were not just porcelain and paint. They were blue and white with hand-painted flowers, each petal carefully detailed by an artist whose name I never knew. Gerald and I had found them in a small antique shop in Vermont during our 30th anniversary trip. We had driven through the fall colors, his hand in mine, talking about growing old together. The shop owner, an elderly woman with silver hair, had wrapped each piece in tissue paper and told us they would bring us happiness for years to come. She was right. They had. Gerald died 3 years ago from a heart attack while trimming the hedges in our front yard. One moment he was humming an old Frank Sinatra song. The next he was gone. The house went to me, of course. We had built our life here together, raised Brandon here, celebrated every birthday and holiday within these walls. The deed was in my name now, solely mine. And I had thought that meant security. I looked at Amber standing there in her designer jeans and silk blouse, clothes that cost more than my monthly grocery budget, and saw the entitled expression on her face. She was 32 years old, beautiful in that polished, calculated way, with highlighted hair that probably cost $300 to maintain. Her manicured nails drummed against the granite countertop Gerald and I had saved 2 years to install. The silence between us stretched long and heavy. She expected me to back down. She always did. Then I saw the new dishes, still in boxes from a discount store, cheap white plates that looked like they came from a clearance sale. They were nothing. Replaceable. Generic. My dishes, Gerald's gift. Our memories were sitting in my garbage bin like trash. "What did you say?" Amber's smile faltered slightly. I repeated myself, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "You'll use those new dishes in your new home? You and Brandon are not staying here anymore." The moment I said those words, I felt something shift inside me. It was not anger exactly, though anger was certainly there. It was more like clarity, the kind that comes when you finally acknowledge a truth you have been avoiding for too long. Amber and my son Brandon had been living rent-free in my house for 18 months. 18 months of slowly creeping disrespect, of gradual boundary violations, of me making excuses because I loved my son and wanted to support his marriage. But this was the final straw. "You cannot be serious," Amber said, her voice rising. "Over some old dishes? Are you hearing yourself right now?" "Those dishes were a gift from my husband," I said quietly. "They represent 30 years of marriage, of love, of a life you apparently think means nothing." "They were taking up space," she shot back. "This kitchen needed updating. I was doing you a favor." A favor. As if throwing away my most precious possessions was somehow an act of kindness. As if I, the owner of this house, needed her permission to keep my own belongings in my own home. "You have 2 weeks to find your own place," I said firmly. Amber's face transformed. The smug confidence evaporated, replaced by something harder, more calculating. "We'll see what Brandon has to say about that." She pulled out her phone and started texting furiously. I knew she was summoning him home from work. Brandon was a junior accountant at a local firm, a job he had held for 6 years, steady and reliable, if not particularly ambitious. He usually did not come home until 6 in the evening, but I knew Amber's text would bring him running. I spent the next 3 hours retrieving my dishes from the garbage, washing each one carefully, examining them for chips or cracks. Most had survived. I wrapped them in towels and placed them in a box in my bedroom closet, where Amber could not reach them. My hands shook as I worked. These were not just dishes. They were Gerald whispering happy anniversary as we unwrapped them together. They were Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas mornings. They were the sound of his laugh when I accidentally chipped one and cried over it, and his gentle reassurance that it only made it more unique, more ours. Brandon arrived home at 2:30 in the afternoon. I heard his car in the driveway, heard the front door slam. Amber's voice immediately filled the house, high-pitched and tearful. "She's throwing us out! Your own mother is throwing us out onto the street." I walked into the living room where they stood together. Brandon looked exhausted, his tie loosened, his face flushed. He was 34 years old, my only child, and until 2 years ago when he married Amber, we had been close. He used to call me every Sunday just to chat. He used to bring me flowers on Mother's Day and take me to lunch. He used to defend me. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked. But his tone was already defensive, already choosing sides. I tried to explain calmly. "Amber threw away the dishes your father gave me for our 30th anniversary. She tossed them in the garbage and replaced them with cheap plates from a discount store. This is my home, Brandon. I have been patient. I have been accommodating. But I will not be disrespected in my own house." Amber's tears flowed freely now. She had always been good at crying on command. I was trying to help. The kitchen needed updating, and those dishes were so old. I bought new ones with my own money. I thought I was doing something nice, and now she's kicking us out like we're strangers. Brandon's jaw tightened. I saw the moment he made his choice, and it broke my heart. "Mom, you're being ridiculous over some old junk," he said, his voice sharp. "Amber has been trying so hard to modernize this outdated house, to make it feel like a home for all of us. And you've done nothing but resist every single change." "This is my home," I said again, but my voice wavered. "It was your father's and mine. You're living here rent-free, and the least I expect is basic respect." "Respect?" Brandon laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You've never accepted Amber into this family. You've criticized everything she does. She can't cook like you. She can't clean like you. She can't do anything right in your eyes. And now you're using some dishes as an excuse to throw us out?" "That's not true," I said. But even as I spoke, I wondered if there was some small kernel of truth to it. Had I been critical? Had I made Amber feel unwelcome? I replayed the past 18 months in my mind, searching for evidence of my failure as a mother-in-law, and found only memories of biting my tongue, of overlooking small slights, of trying desperately to keep the peace. "If anyone should be leaving, it should be you," Brandon said, and the words landed like a physical blow. "This house is too big for one person anyway. Amber and I need it. We're planning to start a family. We have a future here. What do you have? You rattle around in this place alone, clinging to the past, refusing to move forward." I stared at my son, at this man I no longer recognized, and felt something inside me crack. "This is my house," I whispered. "Your father left it to me." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to be cruel to my wife," Brandon snapped. "You apologize to Amber right now, or we're going to make your life very difficult." The threat hung in the air between us. Amber had stopped crying. She watched me with cold calculation in her eyes, waiting to see if I would break. I did not apologize. "Get out of my sight," I said quietly. "Both of you." Brandon grabbed Amber's hand, and they stormed toward their bedroom, the master bedroom, my bedroom, the one they had taken over 6 months ago when Amber complained that the guest room was too small. I had moved into the smaller room without complaint, because I wanted to keep peace, because I loved my son, because I thought sacrifice was what mothers did. I sat alone in the living room as the sun set, surrounded by furniture Gerald and I had chosen together, by photos of Brandon at every age, by the life I had built and the family I was losing. The silence was suffocating. The next 3 days were unbearable. The tension in the house was so thick I could barely breathe. Amber became increasingly bold in her disrespect, treating me like I was the interloper, the unwelcome guest in what she clearly considered her domain. On the first morning, I woke to find she had rearranged all the furniture in the living room. The couch Gerald and I had bought together, the one where we had cuddled during movie nights, where we had comforted Brandon through his first heartbreak, was now facing the wrong direction, pushed against the wall at an awkward angle. The coffee table was gone entirely. When I asked where it was, Amber smiled sweetly and said she had donated it to Goodwill. "It was scratched," she said. "I got us a new one. It'll be delivered next week." She had thrown away my coffee table, the one Gerald had refinished himself in our garage, spending weeks sanding and staining, surprising me with it on our 20th anniversary. On the second day, I discovered she had gone through my closet and removed half my clothes. "They were so outdated," she said when I confronted her. "I took them to a consignment shop. If they sell, you'll get some money. You should thank me for helping you declutter." She had no right, no permission. She walked through my home like she owned it, touching my things, discarding my life piece by piece. Brandon avoided me entirely. He left for work early and came home late. When we crossed paths, he looked through me as if I were invisible. I tried to assert my authority. I told Amber firmly that she could not rearrange my furniture or remove my belongings without permission. She ignored me. I told Brandon we needed to talk, to resolve this situation like adults. He said there was nothing to discuss unless I was ready to apologize. On the third day, I made a decision. I could not live like this. I could not spend whatever years I had left walking on eggshells in my own home, watching my possessions disappear, enduring the cold shoulder from my only child. I needed legal help. I called a lawyer named Patricia Brennan, whose name I had seen on a billboard near the grocery store. She agreed to see me that afternoon. But first, I needed to find my property deed. I wanted to have all my documents in order before the meeting. The deed should have been in the filing cabinet in Brandon's home office, where Gerald and I had always kept important papers. Brandon had taken over that office when he moved in, filling it with his computer equipment and work files. I knocked on the door out of courtesy, even though this was my house. No one answered. Brandon was at work. Amber was out somewhere, probably spending money they did not have. I opened the door. The office looked different. Brandon had painted the walls a dark gray and installed modern lighting. Gerald's old oak desk was gone, replaced with a sleek glass monstrosity, but the filing cabinet was still there, tucked in the corner. I found my deed easily enough, in the folder labeled House Documents, but as I was about to close the drawer, I noticed another folder, this one labeled simply Plans. Something made me open it. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the suspicion that had been growing in my gut over the past 3 days. Maybe it was just fate. Inside were documents that made my blood run cold. There were brochures for elder care facilities. Not nice retirement communities with golf courses and swimming pools, but Medicaid facilities. The kind where people went when they had nowhere else to go. Shady Pines, Sunset Manor, Green Valley Extended Care. Someone had circled the prices, made notes in the margins about availability. There were printed articles about declaring someone mentally incompetent. The text was highlighted in yellow, specific passages marked with exclamation points. Signs of dementia in older adults. Legal process for obtaining guardianship. How to protect your inheritance when a parent becomes incapable. There were notes, handwritten, in Brandon's familiar scrawl, and Amber's looping cursive. Strategies. Timelines. A step-by-step plan. Step 1. Move into the house. Check. They had done that 18 months ago. Step 2. Isolate her from friends and family. There were notes about making her seem difficult and encouraging people to see her as unstable. Step 3. Document erratic behavior. They had dates listed, incidents I barely remembered, twisted into evidence of mental decline, forgot to turn off stove. I had never forgotten to turn off the stove. Wandered outside in nightgown. I had stepped onto the porch one morning in my robe to get the newspaper. Step 4. File for guardianship. They had circled a date, 3 months from now. Step 5. Sell house. Use proceeds to secure our future. My hands shook as I kept reading. There were emails, printed and filed carefully. Emails between Brandon and Amber, discussing this plan, refining it, celebrating small victories. One email from Amber to Brandon, dated 2 months ago. Your mother is more stubborn than we thought. We need to speed up the process. Maybe create some more concerning incidents? I'm researching how to make her seem more confused in front of witnesses. Brandon's response: let's be careful. We can't be too obvious. But you're right. We need to move faster. I checked with that realtor friend of yours. He says the house could sell for $450,000 in the current market. Once we get guardianship, we can put her in Shady Pines for $3,000 a month. The house money will last us years. Another email from Amber. Your mother won't last long in Shady Pines. Those places are depressing. Then the house is ours, free and clear. I sat down hard on Brandon's office chair. I could not breathe. My son. My baby boy. The child I had carried for 9 months. Nursed through midnight fevers. Cheered at every Little League game. Supported through college. Loved with every fiber of my being. He was planning to have me declared incompetent, to lock me away in a facility where I would die, just so he could sell my house. And Amber. Sweet, crying Amber, who played the victim so convincingly. She was the architect of this plan. I could see it in the emails, in the way she pushed and prodded Brandon, in her cold calculations. But the worst was yet to come. At the bottom of the pile, I found a legal document. A power of attorney form. It had my name on it. My signature. Except I had never signed it. I had never seen this document before in my life. The signature was close. Very close. But it was not quite right. The M in Macy slanted the wrong way. The Y at the end had a loop I never made. They had forged my signature. This was not just a cruel plan. This was fraud. This was a crime. My first instinct was to confront them immediately, to wave these papers in their faces and demand an explanation. But something stopped me. Some survival instinct I did not know I possessed. If I confronted them now, they would destroy the evidence. They would deny everything. It would be my word against theirs. And they had already spent 18 months making me look unstable. I pulled out my phone and carefully photographed every single document, every email, every note, every highlighted article, the forged power of attorney. I took dozens of photos, making sure every word was clear and readable. Then I put everything back exactly as I had found it and left the office, closing the door quietly behind me. My appointment with Patricia Brennan was in 1 hour. I had evidence now. I had proof. But I also had the knowledge that my only son wanted me gone, wanted me dead, wanted my house more than he wanted his mother. That knowledge sat in my chest like a stone, heavy and cold, crushing the breath from my lungs. Patricia Brennan's office was in a small professional building downtown, sandwiched between a dentist and an insurance agency. The waiting room had comfortable chairs and outdated magazines. A receptionist with kind eyes offered me coffee, which I accepted with shaking hands. Patricia herself was in her mid-50s, with sharp eyes and an air of competence. She wore a navy suit and minimal jewelry. When she shook my hand, her grip was firm and warm. "Tell me what's going on," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. I told her everything. The dishes, the escalating disrespect, finding the documents. As I spoke, I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos. She looked at each one carefully, her expression growing darker. "This is elder abuse," she said finally. "And fraud. The forged power of attorney alone is a felony. Have you shown this to anyone else?" "No. I came straight here after I found them." "Good. We need to move fast. They don't know you've seen these documents yet, which gives us an advantage." She pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. "First, we file a police report. Today. This is criminal activity. Second, we get ahead of any guardianship filing. We'll file a declaration with the court affirming your mental competence, supported by a doctor's evaluation. Third, we serve them with formal eviction notices. They've been living there without a lease, which means we can evict them with proper notice. How long will this take? I asked. The eviction process in Ohio typically takes 30 to 60 days if they contest it, which they will. The criminal investigation will take longer, but we can make their lives very uncomfortable very quickly. She looked at me seriously. This won't be easy. Your son will fight back. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Gerald's dishes in the trash, about my coffee table donated without permission, about my clothes sold to a consignment shop, about Brandon's emails discussing how long I would last in Shady Pines. Yes, I said, I'm prepared. We spent the next 2 hours filing a police report at the station downtown. The officers who took my statement were sympathetic but warned me that fraud cases could take months to investigate and prosecute. They took copies of all my photos and said a detective would be in touch. Patricia drafted formal eviction notices while we were at the station. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, I had legal papers in my hand demanding that Brandon and Amber vacate my property within 30 days. Serve them tonight, Patricia advised. Don't wait. And Macy? Stay strong. This is going to get ugly. She was right. When I got home, both Brandon and Amber were there. They were in the kitchen, cooking dinner together, laughing about something on Amber's phone. They looked so normal, so harmless, like an ordinary young couple enjoying their evening. It was surreal knowing what they were planning, what they truly thought of me. Mom, Brandon said when I walked in, his tone falsely cheerful. We were just talking about you. Amber made your favorite pot roast. We thought we could have a nice family dinner, talk things through. This was part of their plan. Create witnesses to their kindness. Make me look unreasonable when I rejected their olive branch. I have something for you, I said quietly, and handed each of them an envelope. Brandon opened his first. I watched his face change as he read the eviction notice, saw the confusion give way to anger. What the hell is this? He demanded. Amber read hers, then looked at me with wide, innocent eyes. You actually hired a lawyer? Over dishes? Are you insane? I found your plan, I said simply. In the office. All of it. The emails about putting me in Shady Pines, the forged power of attorney. Everything. The room went silent. Brandon's face turned pale, then red. Amber's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I don't know what you think you found, Brandon said finally, but you're clearly confused. You're proving exactly why we're concerned about your mental state. I have photos, I said. Of everything. I've already filed a police report. A detective will be contacting you soon about the forged documents. That's when Amber started crying. Real tears this time, I thought. Tears of panic rather than manipulation. This is a misunderstanding. Brandon was just researching options for the future, for when you get older and need care. We were trying to be prepared, to be responsible. You forged my signature on legal documents, I said. That was just a draft, she sobbed. We were going to have you sign it properly later. We would never do anything without your permission. Brandon grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. You're making a huge mistake. You're destroying this family over nothing. Let go of me, I said quietly. He did, but his eyes were filled with rage. Fine. You want us out? We'll go. But we're not leaving quietly. You're going to regret this. Over the next 3 days, the situation escalated beyond my worst nightmares. Patricia had warned me it would get ugly, but I was not prepared for how ugly. Brandon and Amber launched a counterattack that was clearly premeditated, another layer of their plan I had not discovered in those documents. They filed their own lawsuit, claiming that I had verbally promised Brandon the house years ago, that Gerald and I had told him multiple times that the house would be his when we were gone, that I was now going back on that promise out of spite. It was completely false. Gerald and I had never made such a promise. But they produced witnesses. Amber's sister Tiffany submitted a sworn statement saying she had heard me promise Brandon the house at Thanksgiving dinner 2 years ago. Her husband Craig corroborated the story. They described the conversation in detail, quoted words I had supposedly said, painted me as someone who made commitments and then cruelly withdrew them. It was all lies, but they sounded convincing. The judge, an older man named Henderson, granted a temporary restraining order preventing me from forcing Brandon and Amber out until the case could be fully heard. The hearing was scheduled for 2 months away. 2 more months of living with them. 2 more months of this nightmare. But that was not the worst of it. I went to my bank to withdraw money to pay Patricia's retainer, money I needed to keep fighting this battle. The account was nearly empty. "What happened?" I asked the teller, a young woman named Amy who had helped me many times before. She checked the computer, her face confused. "It shows a large withdrawal 3 days ago. $48,000. You were here with your son?" I had not been to the bank in 2 weeks. But I suddenly remembered. Brandon was still on one of my accounts. It was an old joint account from when he was in college, something we had set up so I could deposit money for his expenses. We had never closed it. After he graduated and got a job, we had both forgotten about it. Over the years, I had used it as a savings account, slowly building it up. It held nearly all my liquid assets, everything I had beyond the house itself. Brandon had emptied it. $48,000. Gone. I called Patricia from the bank parking lot, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. He cleaned out my savings account. Almost $50,000. What can I do? Patricia's voice was grim. File a police report immediately. But Macy, I need to be honest with you. Since his name was on the account, legally he had a right to withdraw that money. It'll be hard to get it back, and it might take years. We can argue in civil court that he stole from you, but proving it will be difficult. That was my money, I whispered. I need that money to pay you, to fight this case. I know. Let me see what I can do about my fees. But Macy, you need to understand something. They're trying to bleed you dry. Financially, emotionally, legally. They want you to give up. I won't, I said. But even as I spoke the words, I felt doubt creeping in. How could I fight without money? How could I win against my own son, who knew all my weaknesses, who had unlimited access to my life, who was living in my house and watching my every move? When I got home, Brandon was sitting in the living room, waiting for me. He had a smug smile on his face. "Have a good day?" he asked innocently. "You stole my money. I withdrew funds from an account with my name on it. Perfectly legal. You should have thought about that before you tried to throw us out." He stood up and walked close to me, his voice dropping low. "You're not going to win this, Mom. You're alone. You're old. You have no money now. Drop the eviction, drop the police report, apologize to Amber, and maybe, we'll let you stay in your own house. Fight us, and we'll destroy you." He walked away, leaving me standing in my living room, in my house, feeling more powerless than I had ever felt in my entire life. The next few weeks were the darkest of my life. Darker even than the days after Gerald died, because at least then I had my son's support. Now I had nothing. Patricia needed money to continue working on my case. The police investigation was moving slowly, bogged down in bureaucracy. The civil suit Brandon had filed was gaining traction with the help of Amber's family's lies. And I was trapped in my own home with 2 people who wanted me gone. At 67 years old, I had to do something I never imagined. I got a job. The grocery store 2 miles from my house was hiring cashiers. The manager, a man in his 40s named Dale, took pity on me when I explained I needed part-time work. He did not ask too many questions, just had me fill out an application and told me I could start the next day. The work was exhausting. Standing for 6-hour shifts, scanning items, making small talk with customers, bagging groceries. My feet ached. My back hurt. But worse than the physical pain was the humiliation. People recognized me. I had lived in this community for 42 years. I had been Gerald's wife, respected and comfortable. Now I was the elderly woman working as a cashier, and people whispered. I saw the pity in their eyes, heard the questions they did not ask. "What happened? Where's your son? Aren't you too old to be working here?" I came home from my shifts to find Amber had invited friends over, groups of young women drinking wine in my living room, laughing and acting like they owned the place. When I asked them to keep the noise down, Amber would smile sweetly and say, "It's our home too, Macy. We have a right to entertain." Brandon had changed the locks on several rooms. The master bedroom, which they occupied, was now completely off limits to me. Gerald's study, where I used to sit and read his old books, was locked. When I asked for keys, Brandon told me I did not need access to their private spaces. I was sleeping in the smallest guest bedroom, the one we had used for storage, surrounded by boxes I had not bothered to unpack because I had never imagined sleeping there permanently. The room was barely large enough for a twin bed and a small dresser. It felt like I was living in a closet in my own house. Patricia called regularly, but the news was never good. The restraining order was holding. The criminal investigation was slow. Brandon and Amber's lawsuit was scheduled for a hearing in 4 weeks. She needed a $5,000 retainer to continue representation, money I did not have. "I'm working on it," I told her. But we both knew I could not earn $5,000 bagging groceries, not in time. My sister Helen called one evening. We had always been close, talking every few days, visiting each other regularly. She lived 3 hours away in Columbus and had met Amber only a handful of times. "Macy, I got a call from Brandon," she said, her voice careful. "He's worried about you." My stomach sank. "What did he say?" "He said you've been acting erratically, that you threw away all your dishes and blamed it on Amber, that you're making wild accusations about them trying to steal your house. He said you got fired from some job and now you're telling people you're working at a grocery store. But he checked and there's no record of it. He thinks you might be having some kind of breakdown." Every word was a lie, twisted just enough to sound plausible. "Helen, that's not what happened. They threw away my dishes. They're the ones trying to take my house. I have evidence. I filed a police report. Brandon showed me some texts you sent him," Helen continued. "They were really concerning, Macy, rambling and confused. He's worried you might hurt yourself." I never sent him any rambling texts. But even as I said it, I wondered, had I? I had sent him several messages asking to talk, pleading with him to explain himself. Maybe they could be interpreted as confused if you wanted to see them that way. "Maybe you should see a doctor," Helen said gently, "just to rule out anything medical. You're not young anymore, and stress can do strange things to people." "I'm not confused," I said, but my voice sounded desperate even to my own ears. "Helen, please, you have to believe me. I love you," she said. "But I think Brandon might be right. I think you need help." She hung up. My own sister believed them over me. Over the next 2 weeks, the isolation intensified. Brandon contacted other family members, telling them similar stories. My cousin Joyce, who I had been close to my entire life, sent me a gentle email suggesting I get some rest and let Brandon take care of things for a while. Friends from church started looking at me strangely during services, their sympathy mixed with doubt. Amber's social media campaign was subtle but effective. She posted photos of herself cleaning and organizing, with captions about taking care of the home and dealing with family challenges. She never mentioned me by name, but people who knew us could read between the lines. And then, 3 weeks after I found the documents in Brandon's office, I came home from an especially exhausting shift at the grocery store to find Gerald's study destroyed. The door was open, which it had not been in months. I walked in and stopped, unable to process what I was seeing. Everything was gone. Gerald's books, hundreds of them, collected over a lifetime. His desk, the one that had been his father's before him. His reading chair where I used to curl up with a blanket and feel close to him after he died. His photos on the wall, pictures of us through the years. His reading glasses that I had kept on the desk as if he might walk in any moment and need them. All of it. Gone. The room had been painted a pale pink. There was a crib in the corner, still in its box. Bags from baby stores were stacked against the wall. Amber appeared in the doorway, one hand resting on her flat stomach. "Surprise," she said, smiling. "I've been meaning to tell you. We're having a baby." 8 weeks along. We needed the nursery, and this room has the best light. Where are his things? My voice did not sound like my own. It was hollow, distant. Where is everything? Donated most of it. Threw away the stuff that was too damaged. That desk was falling apart, total junk. The books were musty and old. I kept a few photos for Brandon, but the rest wasn't worth saving. I felt something break inside me. Not crack, not fracture, but completely shatter. Gerald's reading glasses had been crushed and thrown away like garbage. His books, many of them first editions, some signed, donated to Goodwill where they would be sold for $1 each. His desk, an antique worth thousands, probably in a landfill by now. And this room, this sacred space where I had mourned him, where I had felt his presence, where I had talked to him late at night when the loneliness became too much, was now painted pink with a crib in the corner. I started screaming. I could not help it. The grief and rage I had been holding back for weeks, maybe years, came pouring out. I screamed at Amber, words I do not even remember, accusations and curses and pure anguish. I screamed until my throat was raw. And Amber, that calculating monster, pulled out her phone and started recording. I lunged for her, trying to grab the phone, and she backed away, still filming, her face arranged in an expression of fear. "Please don't hurt me," she said loudly, clearly for the recording. "I know you're upset, but please calm down. Think about the baby." I chased her out of the room and she ran, making sure to capture my rage on video, my tear-stained face, my complete breakdown. Brandon came home an hour later to find me sobbing in my tiny bedroom, unable to stop crying. Amber showed him the video. I heard them talking in the hallway. "She completely lost it," Amber said. "She tried to attack me. I was terrified. Brandon, we have to do something. I'm pregnant. I can't live like this." That night, Amber posted the video to social media. Not all of it, just carefully edited clips. Me screaming, me lunging toward her backing away, looking frightened, her hand protectively on her stomach. The caption read, "Dealing with my unstable mother-in-law. She threatened me today and I'm pregnant. Pray for us. We're trying to be patient, but I'm scared for my baby." The video spread through our small community like wildfire. By the next morning, it had 2,000 views. People I knew, people I went to church with, people I had considered friends, left comments. "That poor girl. Someone needs to get that woman help. She's clearly dangerous. Why isn't she in a home?" I called Patricia in a panic. She told me not to worry, that edited videos were not reliable evidence, that we could fight this. But her voice lacked conviction. 2 days later, Brandon filed an emergency petition for guardianship, citing the video as evidence that I was a danger to myself and others. The hearing was scheduled for 1 week away. I spent the next 5 days in a fog of despair. I could barely eat, could barely sleep. The world seemed gray and distant, like I was watching my life happen to someone else. Patricia tried to reassure me. She had a doctor lined up to evaluate me and testify to my mental competence. She had prepared arguments about the video being taken out of context, but even she admitted the situation looked bad. "Juries, judges, they respond to what they can see," she said. "And what they can see is you screaming and lunging at a pregnant woman. We can explain it, contextualize it, but it's still what they see." I went to work at the grocery store, scanned items with shaking hands, counted change wrong twice, and had to call Dale over to fix my register. Customers stared. Some recognized me from the video. One woman actually backed away when I reached for her groceries, like I might attack her. The hearing was scheduled for Monday at 10 in the morning. On Saturday, I seriously considered giving up. I thought about just signing whatever papers Brandon wanted, letting them have the house, moving into one of those facilities they had researched. Maybe it would be easier. Maybe fighting was pointless. I was sitting in my tiny bedroom, staring at the wall, when there was a knock on my door. "Macy? Are you home?" I did not recognize the voice. For a moment, I considered not answering, but something made me get up and go to the door. A woman stood on my porch. She was in her early 60s, with short gray hair and a kind face. She looked vaguely familiar, but I could not place her. "I'm Sylvia," she said. "I worked with Gerald at the insurance company. I was his secretary for almost 20 years. The memory clicked. Sylvia. She had sent a beautiful arrangement to Gerald's funeral. I had sent her a thank you note. "I heard about what's happening," she said gently. "Through the grapevine. Small town, you know. Can I come in?" I let her in, too exhausted to ask questions. We sat in the living room, and she looked around, her expression sad. "Gerald loved this house," she said. "He talked about it all the time. About the coffee table he refinished, about the garden you planted together, about the memories in every room." "It's not mine anymore," I said quietly. "Not really. They've taken everything. That's why I'm here." Sylvia reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. 6 months before Gerald died, he came to see me. He was worried. Worried about what? About Brandon's relationship with Amber. He didn't like her, Macy. He never said it to you because he knew you wanted to support your son's choices, but he told me. He said there was something wrong with her, something calculating. He said he was afraid of what might happen after he was gone. My throat tightened. Gerald had seen it. He had known. "He asked me to witness a new will," Sylvia continued. "A very specific will. He left the house in an irrevocable trust with you as the sole beneficiary. Brandon can't inherit it, can't claim it, can't touch it, even if something happens to you. When you die, it goes to a charity of your choice, not to Brandon." She opened the envelope and pulled out legal documents. I recognized Gerald's signature, witnessed by Sylvia, and a notary named Richard Thompson. "He never told you because he didn't want to hurt you," Sylvia said. "He hoped his fears were wrong. He hoped Brandon would prove him wrong. But he wanted to protect you, just in case." I held the documents with trembling hands. Gerald's protection, reaching out from beyond death. "There's more," Sylvia said. She pulled out a flash drive. "My nephew manages the office building across from your house. They have security cameras. When I heard about your situation, I asked him to check the footage from the day Amber claimed you pushed her, the fall that she's been telling people about, using as evidence that you're violent." "I never pushed her," I said. "I know. The video proves it." She faked the whole thing. Waited until she was alone on the porch, then threw herself against the railing and started screaming. "It's all captured on camera." She handed me the flash drive. "There's one more thing. My nephew, he's a private investigator. I hired him to do some digging into Amber. I hope you don't mind, but I felt like I owed it to Gerald." She pulled out a folder. Inside were printouts of internet search histories. Emails, text messages, Amber's search history from her laptop, Sylvia explained. How to get elderly person declared incompetent. Quickest way to sell inherited house. How to fake mental illness in family member. Average life expectancy in nursing homes. She researched all of this, Macy. She planned it. I looked through the documents, tears streaming down my face. Evidence. Real, solid evidence that would prove everything. "Why are you doing this?" I asked Sylvia. "Because Gerald was a good man, and he loved you. Because what they're doing is evil. And because I'm a mother too, and I can't imagine." Her voice broke. "I can't imagine my son doing this to me." She reached into her purse one more time and pulled out an envelope. This was with the will. "Gerald wanted you to have it if you ever needed it." I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a letter in Gerald's handwriting. "My dearest Macy," it began. "If you're reading this, it means my fears were right. It means Brandon has chosen a path I prayed he would never choose. I'm so sorry, my love. I'm sorry I'm not there to protect you. But please know this. You are strong. You are capable. You are everything I ever admired in a woman. Don't let them break you. Don't let them take what we built. Fight for yourself the way you fought for our family all those years. I love you. I'm with you. Always, Gerald." I sobbed as I read it. feeling his love surrounding me even 3 years after his death. Sylvia put her hand on mine. "You're going to win this, Macy. We're going to make sure of it." For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. Monday morning arrived, cold and clear. I dressed carefully in the nicest outfit I owned, a navy blue suit I had worn to church 100 times. Patricia met me at the courthouse steps with Sylvia beside her. "We've got this," Patricia said, her eyes fierce. "Trust me." The courtroom was smaller than I expected, with wood paneling and fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly. Brandon and Amber sat on the other side with their lawyer, a slick man in his 30s named Douglas Werner. Brandon looked confident. Amber looked appropriately worried, one hand resting on her stomach. Judge Henderson entered, the same judge who had granted the restraining order. He was in his 60s, with gray hair and a stern expression. Brandon's lawyer went first, painting a picture of a confused, unstable, elderly woman who was a danger to herself and her family. He showed the edited video of me screaming. He called Tiffany and Craig as witnesses, who repeated their lies about me promising the house to Brandon. He presented records showing I had been erratic and forgetful. Then Patricia stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to present new evidence." She started with the trust documents, Gerald's will, properly witnessed and notarized, leaving the house in an irrevocable trust. Brandon's entire claim to the house evaporated in seconds. My client's late husband created this trust specifically because he was concerned about undue influence on his son, Patricia said. The house was never Brandon's to inherit. His guardianship petition is based on a false premise. Douglas Werner jumped up, objecting. But Judge Henderson silenced him with a look. Patricia continued. She presented the forged power of attorney, the documents I had found in Brandon's office, the emails discussing their plan to have me declared incompetent. She showed the security footage of Amber faking a fall, the internet search history, everything. I watched Brandon's face drain of color, watched Amber's eyes go wide with panic. "This is not a concerned son trying to help his aging mother," Patricia said, her voice ringing through the courtroom. "This is systematic elder abuse. This is fraud. This is a calculated plan to steal my client's home and assets." The judge looked at Brandon and Amber with disgust. "I'm denying the guardianship petition. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution." But we were not done yet. As the judge prepared to dismiss the case, Amber suddenly burst into tears. "Wait," she sobbed. "Please, Your Honor. You don't understand. I'm a victim here too." Everyone turned to stare at her. "Brandon forced me to do all of this," she cried, her voice breaking convincingly. "He abused me. He threatened me. I was terrified. I have bruises." She rolled up her sleeve, showing purple and yellow marks on her arm. They looked real, painful. "He said if I didn't help him get the house, he'd hurt me worse. He'd hurt the baby." I was so scared. The courtroom erupted. Douglas Werner looked shocked. Brandon jumped to his feet. "That's a lie," he shouted. "She's lying. I never touched her." "Order." Judge Henderson banged his gavel. Amber continued, her performance flawless. "I want a restraining order against him. I'm pressing charges. He's dangerous." I felt a moment of confusion. Was she turning on Brandon to save herself? Would she actually get away with this? But then, Brandon, his face purple with rage, made a fatal mistake. "You want to talk about abuse?" he screamed at Amber. "You manipulated me into all of this. You planned everything. And you're not even pregnant, you lying witch." The courtroom went silent. "What?" Amber's face went pale. "The pregnancy is fake." Brandon pulled papers from his briefcase and threw them toward the judge. "I found the fake test in her drawer. She's been lying about being pregnant this entire time." He was so angry, so desperate to bring her down with him, that he kept talking. "And you want to talk about affairs? Show them the text with Craig. Show them the hotel receipts. Show them how you and her sister's husband were planning to frame me too once you got the house." He threw his phone toward the judge's bench. Papers scattered everywhere. "You thought you could betray me?" Brandon screamed. "We were in this together. You convinced me to do all of this. It was your idea to forge Mom's signature. Your idea to make her look crazy. And now you're trying to make yourself look like a victim? Amber had stopped crying. Her face was twisted with rage now. The mask completely dropped. You idiot, she hissed. You stupid, stupid idiot. Patricia leaned over and whispered to me. Well, that's convenient. Judge Henderson looked like he wanted to throw them both in jail immediately. Bailiff, he said quietly. 2 officers approached Brandon and Amber. Brandon was still shouting, revealing detail after damning detail. The fake pregnancy test, the affair with Craig, Amber's sister's husband, their plan to frame Brandon after they got control of the house. Text messages between Amber and Craig planning their future together once Brandon was out of the picture. Craig, who had been sitting in the gallery ready to testify, tried to slip out the back of the courtroom. Another officer stopped him. Tiffany, Amber's sister, let out a scream when she realized her husband was having an affair with her sister. The courtroom descended into chaos. Amber was arrested first, handcuffed while she screamed about her rights. Brandon was arrested second, still shouting accusations at Amber. Craig was detained for questioning. Judge Henderson banged his gavel repeatedly. Order! Order in this court! When things finally calmed down, he looked at me. His expression had softened considerably. Mrs. Turner, I apologize that you've been put through this ordeal. The restraining order is dissolved. The house is yours, as it should have been all along. These people will face appropriate criminal charges. Patricia had one more thing. Your Honor, there's also the matter of Amber's social media harassment campaign. She posted edited videos of my client to defame her, which violates cyberbullying and harassment laws. The judge nodded grimly. Add it to the charges. As I left the courtroom, I felt lighter than I had in months. The nightmare was over. They were caught. They would face consequences. But I also felt a deep, profound sadness. My son, my only child. I had lost him, maybe forever. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings and community gossip. Our small town talked of nothing else for days. The story was too dramatic, too shocking not to spread. Brandon pleaded guilty to fraud and forgery as part of a plea deal. He received 2 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and was ordered to repay the $48,000 he had stolen from my account. His accounting license was suspended. His job fired him immediately. Amber faced harsher consequences: conspiracy, fraud, forgery, cyberbullying, and harassment charges. She pleaded not guilty and demanded a trial, but the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. She received 18 months in county jail and 3 years of probation afterward. Craig lost his marriage, his business partnership with Brandon, and whatever respect he had in the community. Tiffany filed for divorce within a week. The social media video was taken down, but the damage to my reputation took longer to heal. Patricia helped me post a statement with the court documents attached, explaining the truth. Some people apologized. Others never mentioned it, pretending they had never doubted me. A few stubborn souls still whispered that there must have been some truth to the accusations. I learned to live with it. People believe what they want to believe. My sister Helen called 2 days after the trial, crying and apologizing. I should have believed you, she sobbed. I should have known Brandon was lying. I'm so sorry, Macy. I forgave her. Family is complicated, and Amber and Brandon had been convincing. But our relationship would never be quite the same. There was a crack now, a place where doubt had lived. And some cracks never fully heal. Joyce, my cousin, brought me a casserole and flowers. She hugged me tight and said she was ashamed she had doubted me. I appreciated it, but part of me wondered where she had been when I needed her most. The church community rallied around me eventually. They organized a meal train, helped me repaint Gerald's study, brought over furniture to replace what had been donated or destroyed. It was kind, but it could not undo the loneliness I had felt when they believed the lies. I quit my job at the grocery store. Dale understood, even seemed relieved. I think my presence had made customers uncomfortable, And bad publicity is bad for business. With my savings returned and no more legal fees, I could afford to live comfortably again. I spent 2 weeks cleaning my house from top to bottom, erasing every trace of Brandon and Amber's presence. I changed all the locks. I rearranged the furniture back to the way Gerald and I had it. I bought a new coffee table, not as nice as the one Gerald refinished, but good enough. Gerald's study took the longest to restore. I repainted the walls, the soft cream color they had been before. I could not get his books back. They were scattered to donation centers across 3 counties. But I bought new copies of his favorites. His desk was gone forever, but I found a similar antique at an estate sale. It was not the same, but it had character. I hung his photos back on the walls. Us on our wedding day, both so young and full of hope. Us with baby Brandon, Gerald holding him with such pride. Us on our 30th anniversary in Vermont, standing outside the antique shop where we bought the dishes. The dishes. I took them out of storage and washed them carefully, examining each one for damage. They had survived. Most of them, anyway. I was missing 2 salad plates and 1 bowl, probably broken when Amber threw them away. But the rest were intact, and that felt like a miracle. I displayed them in a special cabinet I bought just for that purpose. A glass-fronted case in the dining room where I could see them every day. They were beautiful. Those blue and white plates with hand-painted flowers. They were proof that some things survive, even when people try to destroy them. 6 months after the trial, Brandon called me. It was the first time I had heard his voice since the courtroom. "Mom," he said quietly, "I'd like to talk, if you're willing." I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. He looked different, thinner, older. There were lines around his eyes that had not been there before. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said. "What I did was unforgivable. I betrayed you in the worst possible way." "Yes," I said simply. "You did. I want to explain, even though there's no excuse. Amber." She got inside my head. "She convinced me that you were old-fashioned, that you were holding us back, that we deserved the house more than you did. She made it sound so reasonable, so justified. And I wanted to believe her because it meant I could have what I wanted without feeling guilty about it. So you chose her over me. I chose greed over you. I chose selfishness over you. I chose my worst impulses over the woman who raised me and loved me my entire life." His voice broke. "I've been in therapy, trying to understand how I became someone who could do that. The therapist says Amber was manipulative, that she targeted my weaknesses, but that doesn't excuse my choices. I made them. Me, not her." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I need you to know I'm sorry. Truly sorry. And because I need you to know that I don't expect anything from you. I'm not asking to move back in. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I understand what I did, and I'm trying to become a better person." I looked at my son, this stranger wearing Brandon's face, and felt a complicated mix of emotions. Anger, grief, love, all tangled together until I could not separate them. "I'm willing to talk again," I said finally. "In a few months. But Brandon, there are boundaries now. You will never live in my house again. You will never have access to my finances. You will earn back my trust millimeter by millimeter, and that process will take years. Maybe forever. And if you ever disrespect me like that again, you're out of my life permanently." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you." We did not hug. I was not ready for that. Maybe I never would be. He's been true to his word so far. We talk once a month, brief conversations that are stilted and awkward but slowly getting easier. He's working as a bookkeeper for a small company, rebuilding his life. He lives in a studio apartment across town. He's dating someone new, a woman named Sarah who seems kind from the little he's told me. He does not push for more contact, does not ask for favors, respects my boundaries. Maybe someday we'll have a real relationship again. Maybe not. I'm learning to be okay with uncertainty. Amber got out of jail last month. I heard she moved to another state. I hope I never see her again. As for me, I'm doing well. Better than well, actually. I host book club at my house now, using my precious dishes to serve cookies and tea. My friends admire them, and I tell them the story of how Gerald and I found them in Vermont, though I leave out the part about the trash bin. Some stories are too painful to share casually. I volunteer at the library twice a week, helping with the literacy program. I've taken up painting, something I always wanted to do but never had time for. I'm not very good, but it brings me joy. I sleep in my own bedroom again, the master bedroom with the big windows that catch the morning light. I wake up every day in my own house, secure in the knowledge that it's truly mine. I've learned some hard truths these past months. I've learned that being kind does not mean being a doormat. That setting boundaries is not cruel, it's necessary. That family is built on respect and love, not just shared blood. That sometimes the people closest to you can become strangers, and you have to let them go to save yourself. I've learned that even at 67, you can find the strength you did not know you possessed. That you can survive betrayal and come out stronger. That fighting for yourself is not selfish, it's essential. Most importantly, I've learned that Gerald's love still protects me, even from beyond death. The trust he created, the letter he wrote, the precautions he took, they all saved me. He knew. He saw what I could not see. And he made sure I would be okay. I sit in his study now, in the chair by the window where he used to read, and I talk to him sometimes. I tell him about my day. I thank him for saving me. I tell him I miss him, and in the quiet moments, in the way the sunlight falls across his desk, in the feeling of peace that fills this room, I swear I can feel him here, still watching over me, still loving me, still my partner, even though death separated us. I have my home, I have my dignity, I have my life back. And I have learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is standing up for yourself. To anyone listening to this story, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you love? Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace and protecting yourself? It's one of the hardest things we face as human beings, especially in families. I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story touched you, if it resonated with something in your own life, please consider liking this video and subscribing to hear more stories like mine. Share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to stand up for themselves, that it's okay to set boundaries, that it's okay to fight back against those who would take advantage of your kindness. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here with me. I hope wherever you are, whatever you're facing, you find the strength to protect yourself and the courage to demand the respect you deserve. May you always have a safe place to call home, and may you never be afraid to defend it. Take care of yourselves, and remember, you are stronger than you think.